Hello and welcome. And today I am really excited because we are going to talk to someone that I feel is a valuable piece of the youth sports ecosystem, however we want to pronounce that. I think we talk so much about skill set and we talk about strength, but we don't talk about the need and the value of being flexible and fluid as an athlete. So today we're going to talk to Tracy Tangway, aka Mobility Chick. You can follow her on all the socials. Obviously, a very large presence on X as well as Instagram. But Tracy, thank you for taking the time to join me here today.
Walter, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you. And that was a really glorious intro. Thank you.
You're very, very welcome. And I mean it sincerely. Parents, one of the things with regard to that development, as a 13 through 19-year-old, through those middle school and high school years, we talk about size, we talk about strength and speed and skill. But one of the things that we really need to understand is we're not trying to create robots. We're trying to create fluid, moving athletes. So, Tracy, my first question to you would be, what's the age that you generally begin to start to work with athletes, young children, teenagers, et cetera, with regard to movement patterns from an athletic perspective?
You know, I don't want to just say, hey, everybody, but honestly, from what I've
Everybody.
seen in the
Yeah.
older ranges, when you can actually start at the younger, like the youngest you can go with just really simple stuff, it's going to set them up to be more fluid and have their brains, their nervous system understand these patterns as they grow. So how I've seen is these players are coming in with their bodies completely out of whack, like jacked, honestly. I feel like early college and high school have been the worst that I've seen. And so I've kind of started a little bit early. We have to undo a lot with that age. But if we can kind of just start sneaking some stuff in the little league, and they already understand, okay, their form may not be perfect, but they don't understand how to move at these earlier ages. It sets them up when they're in high school and college. So kind of everybody.
What are some of the fundamental things that the younger athletes, at the young ages, whether it's youth soccer, youth football, basketball, baseball, et cetera, what are some of the fundamental movement or stretches or routines that families can begin to implement before a practice or before a game?
First, I would say ditch static stretches. They're not bad, but they're out. And we have to have as much bang for our buck in the amount of time that we have. People kind of overlook the importance of a warm up, but if you do it right, you can integrate it into everything that you do. So, one of the drills that I recommend, and I have a warm up, there's two warm ups. There's a warm up that you can get for free, and then there's another one you can pay for, but I'll give you a code. If whoever's listening, the code is Mobility Chick. You'll get that for free. And it's my updated warm up, and it has these drills in it. One that is fantastic is if you're standing on one leg and you bring the other knee up in front of your hip, so it's kind of like right out in front, and then you bring the opposite arm up. So you've got one knee in front of your hip, the other elbow in front of your shoulder. And when you inhale, you press the elbow and the knee forward at the same time. I call them standing pops, pushing opposite parts. So you're pushing the elbow on this side, the knee on the opposite side. Well, when you inhale, you're working with the breath work and the internalization of the air pressure, the internal air pressure of your body to create space with all along the joints along your spine and in your pelvis. And those are necessary for rotation. So no matter what you're doing, you could just stand there while you're waiting for, BP or out in the field or as part of the warm up. So standing pops, one elbow up, the opposite knee, press it forward. And I think you're gonna ask other questions that might have other exercises, but that would be the first one that I would integrate.
One of the things I want parents to understand is we're going to have all of Tracy, aka Mobility Chick, her website. You're going to have access to her social media profiles because I really encourage you, especially parents of younger athletes, athletes really of all ages, but particularly the younger athletes. The earlier you start, the more fluid your athlete will be, the more prepared your athlete will be when they're starting to grow, whether that be internally, with regard to growth at the teenage years, obviously later as an older student athlete at the high school and college levels. So Tracy, one of the things that I really want to kind of delve deep into is when we talk about young athletes, we really neglect talking about things like hydration and really fueling the body, and things that young student athletes can really begin to implement, whether it's simply electrolytes or water or fruit intake or things like that? What are some of the key components nutritionally that parents should be keenly aware of when their athletes are participating in an aggressive sports schedule?
I'm not one to pump my kids with food dyes and fake shit. Excuse my shitness language over here. I got a book coming out. It's called Shit About Moves You Should Know. So I drop shit every now and then. Sorry if that's offensive. But in terms of what you should feed your kids, it's really hard to keep them away from crappy food and keep them on the healthy stuff. Their body is going to recover so much better with fruits and veggies. I personally hydrate my kids with water, just plain water, and then I put fresh lemon, not the squeezed lemon that has a bunch of crap in it, but just fresh lemon. That helps to hydrate them in the way that they need. I don't do electrolytes. I don't do, was it Prime or Gatorade or anything. All the stuff has food dyes, which is really bad for brain and development. So anything you can find that has the least amount of ingredients on the back of it, at least for hydration purposes. And then I know this isn't what anybody wants to hear, but it's really true, is fruit, vegetables, bananas, mangoes. If you could pump them with, like, sneak stuff in there. If you're going to make macaroni and cheese, throw spinach in there, cut it up really small. But that stuff really, really matters. And trying to avoid, I was at one seminar and speaking on a panel, and a coach said, well, I just try to get my kids, some glucose, and I just give them gummy bears right after. I'm like, that is just so terrible. There are other ways to get your glucose up, after. So if you could, I'm not going to list a bunch of things that you can do, but avoid things with food dyes. Sugar-free stuff is so bad. Aspartame, none of that stuff. If you're going to have something with sugar, make it real sugar, honey, maple syrup. I'm more on the holistic side. I'm like really crunchy, but it's really, really important. The recovery for kids, sleep it affects, their focus. There's so much junk in our food that if we can just feed them healthy stuff, their attention's going to get better, the recovery is going to get better, and they're going to do better on the field.
You mentioned a word there that I really want to kind of zone in on, and that is recovery. And we don't, as parents, especially when our teenagers are, that 12 to 15-year-old, we don't talk enough about warm down or cool down or stretching post practice or after an event, athletic event. Can you talk a little bit about some of the values associated with making sure your student athlete does a stretch or a cool down period after they've practiced or had a competitive event?
Yeah, one of the things I like about a recovery is your body's already warm. So you can actually go into good stretches, like passive but active stretches when the body is warm. So, one that you can do if you're lying on your back, instead of doing just a twist and twisting the crap out of your body, if you kind of rotate your knees to one side, let's say you go to the left, the right leg is now on top. If you push the right leg down into the ground, you get a really nice stretch from through that anterior sling, oblique sling, something that's just been worked, especially with overhead athletes. So trying to make the moves that you're doing in like a combination of passive and active, and then really just taking a time just to center the body when a game is happening. The nervous system is in a state of fight or flight. They're in performance. They're constantly, everything is super heightened. We just need to bring that down a little, even if it's just 3 minutes, honestly, and taking time. I like tapping. Tapping is EFT, where you can tap. I don't know if you're watching on video, you can see where I'm tapping,
Right.
but it would be above your eyebrows, the side of your temples, below your eyes, below your nose, on your chin, collarbone, just below your collarbone, sides, and then kind of rib cage, wrists, and then the top of your head. If somebody were to do that, even on the bus after a game, or if you're on a plane, just spend 30 seconds and do one of them is better than nothing. That just helps to kind of anchor everything in the body to bring it more centered. And now it's getting a little bit more common to do weird stuff. But my kids know how to do it. My kids have been tapping since they were little, and in a dugout, they'll just sit there and tap. It's like, you know what? If somebody makes a comment to them, just Tell them to mind their own business in a
Well,
friendly
I can
way.
tell you, believe it or not, my son Tyler does that in the dugout. He's been doing that, I think, for like the last 2 or 3 years, especially in the temples. He'll just sit there and do this for like a minute. And I saw him doing it one time. I had to ask him, and he gave me that exact answer. And so I think that's really tremendous advice, especially for parents of those athletes that might be playing multiple sports, or they're trying to do a homework and they need to kind of decompress a little bit and kind of cool themselves down. So, one of the follow up questions to that would be at what point should younger athletes begin to develop, like a routine, whether it's right before they go to bed, right when they wake up? I mean, is there something that the young athletes can do with regard to stretches, lower back? I know when kids are getting older, they have back issues or their legs get a little tight. Is there like a routine that you might suggest for the younger athletes that are just beginning to play competitive sports at a high level?
Yeah. There's something called CARS, CARS, controlled articular rotations. What those are is you moving all of the joints in your body in a particular way that sends a signal to your brain of how to fully use that joint in the full range of motion. So it doesn't take that long to do, but if somebody is able to get into a pattern, you could do them in the morning or at night. A lot of guys do them before they even start throwing. So how the brain and the body connect is if you're using the full joint range of motion, your body's sending a signal to your brain of this is the full joint range of motion. So then your brain gets the signal, it's called afferent feedback, to then send to the rest of your body, hey, this joint's working properly. Let all the things connected to that joint also work. That one's safe. What happens is when you don't do a full joint range of motion in anything, hip, shoulders, back, spine, neck, knees, all the above, what it sends is a non-clear message. Here's an example. You're driving to your friend's house in a backcountry road. You have a cell phone and you don't know the directions. So you call up your friend and say, hey, I'm lost. How do I get to your house? And foggy afferent feedback with your joint not like if you're just doing arm circles, that's foggy, not clear signals. That sends a message to your brain where driving, hey, I'm 3 miles down the road. When you get to the stop sign, take a and then go up and you'll see a stop sign. You will be lost. Like you're just like, who the heck knows if I'm going to end up there? Well, when you use the full joint range of motion, it's like a clear signal to the person, your brain and the body. It's, hey, go up 3 miles, stop sign, take a left, second stop sign, right. I'm the second house on the left. Boom, you got it. Same thing with the body. So cars, that's another thing on my website. I have everyday cars, I think, listed on my website, and it goes through all the joints that are important for athletes to use, and you can do it for 5 minutes. I mean, sometimes I'll be standing in line or just like out at my kid's game, and I do them, and I don't care what I look like because I know my body's going to feel better if I just get one in. And you don't have to do all of them at once, but if you have the time, the least I would say to do would be shoulders and hips. If you have more time, then you can do spinal cars, which will be helpful for lower back. What I found when you mentioned like stiff backs and stuff like that, what I found when kids are growing, if they have growing pains, from my experience, I've seen that it's not always growing pains. It's there's some shit out of whack in their body and something is pulling on something that is somewhere else hanging on for dear life. So if there's growing pains, see if we can get the underlying structure a little bit more, I say in whack, a little bit more balanced, and the cars will be helpful with that for recovery, warming up the day, and just sending clear messages.
Now, you can absolutely see why I felt it was really important for us to have Tracy, aka Mobility Chick, join us, because I think this is the type of information that is kind of underlying that a lot of the professional and high level college athletes seek out, but it's really, really necessary for the younger athletes. And I was going to end there, but I have to ask you this question with regard to, like, we see a lot of I call them gadgets and gadgets, but a lot of, you don't need the bands, you don't need the, all the, what I call the stretches, and you can do a lot of this stuff on your own. So parents, they can find you and have access to you and purchase your digital training products, and this is something that can be done I'm going to call it holistically or simply at home without having to pick up and buy equipment that you have to put in a bedroom or a basement or anything like that. Can you talk a little bit about the value of just being able to have, whether it's a mat on the floor in your bedroom or downstairs in the basement, wherever you might do. But this is valuable just to be able to do simply on your own, with your help, obviously, but with regard to simple stretches and breathing exercises.
Yes, I will answer that. I'm home with a sick kiddo today. So if you see me on camera, my little guy just woke up. So it's good timing to answer this question and then tend to him briefly. So you don't need anything. In my opinion, you don't really need anything. When guys were stuck at home with COVID, all you needed was a living room. When the guys came back and they were stuck in, quarantine in hotel rooms with nothing, I was the girl who was able to help them because you don't need anything. You can use body weight, you can use walls. A mat is nice, just a little bit more comfortable on the floor. But you don't need gadgets and gadgets. It's just putting your body in positions that your body can do freely, and then using your own body weight. You don't need all of the fancy things. And you can honestly very, very, very effectively train very well, stay healthy, and get really strong with just your body weight and your floor and the walls. Did I
Well,
answer your question? Did I
I
answer
want to
that?
let everybody know that all of Tracy's information, her website, her access with regard to her social media handles will all be both in the podcast as well as the videos that we put out. So I encourage you as parents, A, give her a follow, but B, definitely reach out and allow Tracy to help your student athlete way beyond, high school or college athletics, starting as young as 6 or 7 years old. Tracy, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Walter, for having me.